Welcome back to tensions in the Middle East now heating up. Reports that a number of Russians who had been hired as paramilitary contractors were among more than 100 men killed in U.S. airstrikes in northern Syria last week. And now we also have Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu fighting corruption charges, including bribery allegations. To break this all down, let's bring in retired Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin. Good to see you, General.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
What do you make of what's going on in the Middle East right now?
Well, it's the Middle East. I don't know what else to say. I mean, there's always some kind of upheaval there. But look, I think this thing with the Russians should be no surprise. You know, America has had contractors in the battle space ever since we went into Afghanistan back in 2001. So there should be no surprise here. And the details are not real clear in terms of the number that were actually killed, but we know there were some Russians, certainly a minimum of 4 and probably maybe as many as a dozen or more, that were killed by the U.S. airstrikes there after they had attacked a base that had our allies, the Kurds, as well as a U.S. detachment there. And it was swift and it was decisive. It was the right response.
You know, the U.S. Defense Secretary Mattis is saying that Russians had said there are no Russian forces there, and all of a sudden there are Russian paramilitary contractors killed. What do you make of it?
Well, first of all, remember that in 2015, the Russians actually passed a law that they don't report casualties. Now, there's a lot of opposition to this, but that was a result of them going into northeastern Ukraine, and they were actually losing people, so they passed this law that they wouldn't report it. There would be no publicity about it or anything like that. So the fact that they're not talking about this is consistent with the pattern that we've seen, certainly ever since they went into the Ukraine there, because the last thing they want is what happened to them in Afghanistan, and that is they couldn't explain to the Russian people back in the 80s as to why there were so many dead Russians coming home. They just couldn't explain it. So ultimately that forced them to pack up and go home, and that's when the Soviet Union disintegrated, when they came out of Afghanistan with their tail tucked between their legs. They've learned a lot from that, and they're taking a different approach.
Okay, Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin, thank you so much for coming on, sir. We really appreciate it. And thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you very much. Glad to be with you.